Thank you so much for that introduction, Richard. And I just want to thank you for being so kind and supportive. I think, yeah, Richard reached out to me after the Only Poems reading a few months ago and had such kind things to say. And we had a really exciting back and forth just talking about poems and writing processes. And it was so kind to meet another writer in that way. So thank you. And thank you to Lenny for inviting me for this reading. And of course, thank you so much to Alice for reading. I haven't been in a poetry space in a while, it feels like. And I feel like I even said this 2 months ago. There's something so special about hearing someone read poems out loud. Um, and I was so moved. So I'm really grateful to be in this space today. Also, because I've been writing a lot of prose lately. And as someone who, started writing poetry, I haven't written a poem in a month and a half, which is really, it's such a weird feeling to me. And something about reading poems, but also writing poems is extremely relaxing to me and grounding. And for whatever reason, writing prose is very hectic and stressful to me. I'm still having a lot of fun, but the energy is different. And being in this poetry space today is like reminding me why I started writing poems, and that's really, really special. So yeah, I'm really grateful to be here. Okay, so I have a few poems that I'd love to read for you guys. I actually wanted to start with a poem that's not mine. It's really short, but I love it so much. It's one of my favorite poems of all time. I am trying to figure out who it's by, so give me a quick second. Here we go. Okay, so it's by a poet named Matt Haig. And this poem, as I mentioned, is really short. It's called Self-Help. Self-help. How to stop time. Kiss. How to travel in time. Read. How to escape time. Music. How to feel time. Write. How to release time. Breathe. That's it. It's so fantastic. And every time I read it, I just like my heart stops and I'm like, oh, I wish I could have thought about, poem in this vein. It's so simple, but it's so ultimate. And I love it so much. So okay, that's the first one I wanted to read. Okay, moving on. So I guess I have a few poems I'd like to read for you guys. A lot of them are older. I have one that I wrote about a month and a half ago, which was probably one of the last poems I've written, and I'd love to read that for you guys too. But maybe start with a poem I wrote that was published in Only Poems, and it was part of this series of yellow poems that I was writing, very inspired by the color. So this is part one of that series, and it's called Studies in Yellow. Studies in Yellow. Bumblebee and goldenrod, dandelions in summer, and the glaze over tea-stained teeth. Sallow grin, ear of corn. We are strong in the morning, and less so by evening. I even knew a man whose mother's skin turned a putrid yellow after weeks of dying. He told me this over breakfast, hollandaise sauce snaking down his plate like a long hearse. Silken yolk in the yellowed pages of an old dictionary. An unfeeling sky holds the moon like a searchlight. She had forgotten the last of her memories. At the funeral, no one could recognize her face. I think yellow is the innocent sun. I think yellow is a hope as bright as the end drawing near. In our eyes, we nursed timid tears. He took a long breath and smiled sadly. But, he said, the next poem I'm going to read is also, I guess, somewhat of a love poem. Similar to what Alice said, I feel like it's so fun to fall in love with something. Like it, it doesn't even really have to be a person. It can be like the feeling itself. And I think that's kind of what draws me to, other writers is like this pure obsession where you just like need to go down a rabbit hole and just like think about something forever. And you're just like, it's just turning in your mind. And so this poem is called Love Spell. Love Spell. She talks, he listens. He talks, she daydreams about his lips. Focus, focus. He says something about the sunset. She smiles. She can't stop smiling. And he is the same. Between them, the moment crawls out from inside an eggshell. And the lavender light, oh, how it floods in from the tin roof. And now they are trapped in a kaleidoscope, in a wormhole. Today she is drinking tea, and he is too. They sip from their cups so gradually, so tenderly. She pauses. A small gap sneaks into the air. He lets the silence crawl around them, embrace them. She notices the sun glinting off of the delicate metalware. He notices himself, noticing the slowness of everything. The deliberation of her gaze, she stares into the amber of his eyes. He falls into a train of thought. It takes him far into the clouds of his mind. He smiles shyly. She blinks and she also falls, slowly, slowly, out of the daydream into the mortal coordinates of their reality. Outside, the afternoon yawns and stretches, and the world is finally awake.
Good.
Thank you. So I guess I have 3 more poems to read. This next poem I actually wrote on the day it was announced that, well, the poem is titled November 7th, 2020. And I believe that was the day that they announced the election results from 4 years ago. It was a really, for me, spirited day in New York City, and felt like it was the end of a really long, tumultuous time, like also in the middle of the pandemic. So there's a lot of emotions going on. But that's kind of what inspired this poem. And it's titled November 7th, 2020. I remember that morning because the champagne was sold out from every corner store. We woke up in accidental bliss, although we didn't realize this until we were halfway to Fort Greene, and all the cars were honking up and down Fulton Street in celebration. My girlfriend's golden hair was a sunbeam, and I held her hand as we weaved through ecstasy and bodies that had held so much grief and anger for 4 long years. And at the top of the park, someone had dragged these 20-pound speakers out onto the earthen landing of a stately brownstone apartment. Every movement made was to dance. At the time, we were still wearing masks outdoors. Many had rushed outside, banging the pots and the pans they'd been beating every evening around 6 p.m. in the cold, gray dark. That sort of life we'd been living now feels like a footnote in a stuffy encyclopedia. Or maybe that's where I want those memories to stay. As some sort of aberration, a sunburn in November, love letters locked away in a cardboard box. How foreign and wonderful it felt to be one among hundreds of bodies feeling again the ineffable things that moved through and around us. Again, I try to stow these strange times away into some gray filing cabinet within the basement of my mind. And I generally do this with no problem. After all, I recounted this whole story and didn't mention you, not even once.
Ah,
So thanks, guys. I think this is the penultimate poem. If this is a poem I wrote about my dreams. Generally, it's called I Dream of All My Insecurities. I dream of all my insecurities. I dream of all my insecurities. I dream of spring beginning and beginning and beginning again. And I dream of your body lying next to mine. It feels so infinite, my skin cries out. I dream of the clouds today, desiccated coconut and billowing bruise. Tomorrow, cellulite and reams of wool. I dream of all my nightmares, the one where I cannot protect my brother, my sister, the one where the self-driving car whisks me away and I'm inside and I can't scream. And in the night, there is a static energy. And I dream of every color in the universe and in the colors I've never seen before. I dream of me. I dream of me. Then I dream of me and I dream of you. I dream in black and white and I dream of flying, of floating, of absolute freedom. And I dream in Chinese when I dream of tenderness. Then I dream I'm a bird, a ghost, and I'm haunting a quiet memory. I dream I am awake, but I cannot move. I dream I kissed you and the shock was so great I realized I was dreaming. I dream of escaping a trap that I've built by myself, for myself. I dream it's the end of the world and I'm desperately searching for my grandmother. I dream every single night, though I can't quite remember every detail. I dream of running through the forest and someone I am terrified of is chasing me down. I dream the floor in the shower is carpet. I try to ignore it, try to justify it, but I'm completely disgusted by it. I dream of saying everything I could never admit to in real life. I dream I'm hanging from your lips. It takes me somewhere far away and I dream and I dream and I dream until it wakes me up. And this last poem I want to read is the last poem I wrote, I guess. This was a while ago, about a month and a half ago, but I read this poem by Alison Adair. She had a poetry collection called The Clearing, and I read it on vacation about 2 months ago, and I just loved it so much, and it really inspired this poem. And this poem is called The Age of. More rules now than there used to be. The guardrails whine beyond the iron drawbridge. The netting glowers below the Golden Gate. People telling you to be careful of this, fearful of that. Did you know it wasn't always like this? Before, you couldn't even dream of a person who would hurt you. No words yet invented for suicide bomber. Only verdant villages, miniature like hills in a bed of knuckles. They'd let you get in close, let you see inside the cockpit, Lady Liberty's helmet, the bellies of fish. It used to be you could bring a whole lake to the airport in a plastic bag. You could transport your liquid heart in an aluminum can through security, an airborne body of water, a shield flipped on its back, used as a shallow bowl. In that room, you could smell the air, 300 colorful buttons and your own 2 hands. When they weren't looking, you could have pressed, you could have pushed, but you didn't. The world was still a soft wonder. Inside each crowded auditorium, the arena squeezed like a push pop, not a single person imagining a gun going off. Outside, on the shoulder of a grassy street, cars would slow and ask if you needed a ride. So off to the village you go, never hearing of a megacity. To the pink palm of a hand, not a clenched fist. And the earth beyond here, it was lush and baby blue, plains of silken tofu and sunshine mimosa, acre after glorious acre. It used to be you could drink from any river. Then, as it turns out, some people are not who they say they are. You recall the first time you learned about modern warfare, so casually, like ice in a cup. The first time you felt a love rendered frigid in your hands. Something cracks apart in a magenta glass. It doesn't feel the same anymore. Wind blows and the chimes whistle a tune about despair. Above the tall grass, a storm cloud rolls in like a stallion. Thank you, guys.